Hi everybody, I'm Skip Larrington.
And I'm Maria Sherman.
And we're your Hidden Valley High School chemistry teachers. We're looking at taking you through this exciting adventure that we call chemistry. Obviously you already know we have a flipped classroom, so we want to explain what that is. You're going to be watching a lot of podcasts, and that's what you're watching now. You're watching a podcast. Your podcast will be made up of a few different things. One is you might be watching a video, like you are right now. You might be watching a demo that we do in class that we've actually recorded of students doing a demo or of us doing a demo. Or you might be watching screencasts, which are kind of like PowerPoint presentations with us writing on them and talking over them. And that's frankly what you'll be seeing most of.
So what's the purpose of this video? Well, our goal here is to teach you how to watch the videos. So
let's get started.
All right, so this is what a podcast looks like. I will be recording them, and Mrs. Sherman will be recording them. We might be recording them at school. We might be recording them at home. I'm presently at home. So you will find that we'll record it from different places. Okay. There are a couple things as you think about podcasts of what makes a successful podcast. Think about what you currently do to be successful in class right now. Well, you probably listen in class. That would be a good thing. All right. Hopefully you might take notes in class. And you stay focused. And sometimes I know that's hard to do. I mean, let's face it. Teachers can drone on and on and on for hours, right? Especially in an hour and a half block. So you do these things to be successful in class right now. When you're watching a podcast, those are the things that you have to do to be successful, right? So frankly, you have to listen, right? And to listen, you need a quiet place to work, right? A quiet place is not on the bus on the way home, right? It is not watching television. It's not playing on Facebook while you're listening to a podcast, okay? Doesn't cut it, folks. You're not playing on Facebook when you're in class. You're not talking to your friends when you're in class, right? You're not watching something else when you're in class. You're actually focusing and listening to a lecture. That's exactly what you have to do to be successful when you're watching podcasts. You have to take notes, right? And this is something that Mrs. Sherman and I will be checking, right? We will actually be checking your notes to make sure that you actually have written down notes for every podcast. And you need to remain focused. You say, well, wait a minute, that could be a problem. All right, if I'm trying to focus, I can get tired. It's boring. I'm watching this thing on a video, you know? I mean, come on, it's got to be boring. Well, let's look at what happens in class. In class, we repeat ourselves a lot. All right? Think of a student, all right, who really gets it, all right? Really on top of things. Chemistry really appeals to them. You tell them something once, they figure it out. All right? You find someone who maybe is a good science student, good math student. It might take them, you have to repeat something 3 or 4 times, all right, maybe to get them to pick something up. Right? How about the student who really isn't a science student and frankly would rather be out, I don't know, doing something else? Let's say be in an art class, for example, all right? It might take them 8 times, 10 times, 100 times, who knows, all right? And by that time, you've zoned out. Let's face it. The person who picked it up the first time, by the time the teacher's repeating themselves for the 4th time, saying something in a new and different way, or trying to say something in a new and different way, all right, the students have zoned out. All right, that's the beauty of a podcast. I can say something 1 time, 2 times, at most 3 times. All right, if you don't get it, rewind it. All right, if you're taking notes, pause it. All right, so in class, you cannot pause your teacher. You can pause video. In class, you can't stop the teacher and say, hey, would you rewind and say that again? Right? Or at least you might only do it once. All right? You can do that as many times as you want with a podcast. All right? You want to take a break and go to the bathroom. All right? You say, excuse me, teacher, may I go to the bathroom? Yeah. Does the teacher stop and wait for you to come back? No. Well, here you can. You want to pause the video? Pause the video. Not a problem. All right? Since I don't have to repeat myself so many times, and since I don't have to wait because you're pausing the video, I can take a 45-minute lecture and drop it down to about 10 to 15 minutes. All right? So all of our podcasts, almost all of our podcasts are going to be between 10 and 15 minutes. They're not going to be half an hour long. All right? They're going to be a lot shorter, 10 to 15-minute podcasts. All right? You should be able to remain focused for that 10 to 15-minute podcast. Okay? Now, so what do we do in class? Well, typically what happens in a normal class is, the person lectures, the teacher lectures, and they give you some worksheets to work on or some homework to work on, and then you take it home. And what happens when you get home? Well, you don't touch them. Okay? It's Friday night. I'm not doing homework Friday night. I'm going to a football game. Right? And I'm not going to do it Saturday night and Sunday night. Well, you know, I don't have that same class on Monday, so I don't have it till Tuesday, so I'm going to wait. Right? And finally, Monday night, all right, you pull out your homework and you look at it, and it's Greek, and you don't remember any of it. All right? Well, let's look at how this works. And by the way, what happens? All right? How do you get help? All right? Do you call a friend? Ooh, that would be cool. Probably not. Do you call a teacher? Yeah, right. Yeah. Gee, my students call me, right, at night if they have questions. But let's face it, how many teachers give you a home phone number where you can call them? All right? So, okay, but most students, what they do is just say, I'm just going to put it off. All right? And I'm not going to bother. And I'm going to go to class, and hopefully the teacher won't call on me to explain something because I don't have a clue what they're talking about. All right? Well, the beauty of having a flipped classroom is the lectures are online. You watch them when you're home. So when you come to school and you're doing worksheets and you don't know how to do something, guess what? Your friend is sitting right next to you. Your teacher is a couple steps away. All right? And you can't put it off because you're right there in class. Right? So bottom line is when you're working on a worksheet, when you're trying to solve a problem, and that's when you need the help. Right? There's someone there to help you. And that's why this flipped classroom, if you use it properly, is great. All right? Now, if you come to class and you're watching the podcast in class, and one of the students you're going to hear from today said that, is they tended to watch the podcast in class. That was fine for them because they were very, very, very diligent about watching the podcast in class. Very, very diligent about doing their worksheets immediately. Very diligent about asking for help. And then they took their test. Right? That works if you are 100% diligent and if you're an intelligent student and you pick things up quickly. Right? If you struggle at all, you need to watch the podcast at home. Because that's something you don't need me for. The podcasts are there. You do need to take notes, so make sure you do that. Okay. All right. So watch the podcast. That's the most important thing. Right? Would you skip class and expect to do well in class on the test? Heck no. That doesn't work. All right, so you can't skip the podcast. That's like saying I'm going to skip class. I'm going to do the homework, but I'm going to skip class. That's stupid. All right? So you have to go and you have to watch the podcast. And then you can do the worksheets, which are the things where you are practicing, and that's very important. Watching me do the worksheets doesn't help you. You have to do them. All right. What happens if I do a demo? That's one of the things we said we could do. I'm not actually going to play one right now, but I can pull out all the wasted time. Let's say we have a demo that takes 20 minutes, right? And you set it up and you do it for the first 5 minutes, then you have to let it sit there for 15 and wait for it to do its thing. We can pull that time out. What happens if you're in class? Well, if you happen to be in the bathroom when that last 2 minutes happened, you'd miss it. All right? What would happen if I missed it? Oh, I know it's coming, but oh gee, I got so enthralled in what I was teaching that I forgot it and missed it. All right? What happens if it didn't work? Well, the beauty of this is if I have something where I have a bunch of wasted time in the middle, I can cut it. If it didn't work, I just re-record it. All right? Just do it again. All right? Well, you can't do that in class because all of a sudden I have to waste another 20 minutes out of class. It just won't get done. This way you get to see it. All right. Watch the podcast carefully. Give them your full attention. You need to do that. You need to remain focused. Can't be playing on Facebook while you do this. All right. I'm going to put in a video now from a couple of former students that we had last year, and they're going to make some comments about what helped make them successful when they were watching podcasts and what they ran into as detractors or distractors when they were distractions, excuse me, I made up a new word, distractions when they were first doing this podcast thing. So this will help you. Watch them, and then I'll close everything out.
Hey chemistry noobs! We have a couple of tips for you guys on how to be successful at podcast learning because we were pretty successful at podcast learning.
Do the worksheets. Watch the videos.
Watch the podcast.
Stay after school to take the test.
And do as much work in class
Don't
as
slack,
possible.
because you cannot get back
Don't
on track.
skip class.
Just take your test and get it over with.
Chemistry, collaboration is key.
My advice to you guys is to not be afraid to ask for help because the science teachers are really good
and they're here to help us.
My advice is to stay on pace with the units and get ahead if you can, because it will really benefit you at the end of the year and you'll be able to stay on track.
Tip 1, Mr. Larrington will say that you should watch the podcast at home and do the worksheets in class, but I'm not sure I ever really watched any at home. I normally just watched them in class and then did the worksheet right after, and you can finish like 3 podcasts in a class period typically. So don't stress yourself out trying to do them at home and like do them as homework, because if you really just focus in class,
Can you get them done?
yeah, you can like just not have any homework at all.
Stay at A pace the whole time?
Yes,
It's better to be ahead than struggling the last 9 weeks.
because then it gets really stressful. So it's tempting in class because you don't technically have to do anything. It's like tempting to just go out and wander and like not focus, but try and focus and try and just like keep yourself on pace, because it's better than trying to catch up. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Mr. Larrington's really helpful. Go in the mornings and after school if you need to, and ask him for help and ask him questions.
Do the optional things too, not just for extra work.
Yeah. Do the reviews at the end of each unit, because it's a really good way to just like combine everything. Just working in class is a big thing that can help you a lot. Go over your notes before each test.
And take them as many times as you can.
Yeah.
Like, don't just give up.
Some people think that because you have multiple attempts, you can just like not study and just like go for it and go into it blindly. But if you study, then you only have to take it like once. So
Yeah, and you can't just memorize the questions because there's a bank of like 1,000 choices. So.
yeah. And read over your notes from each unit before you take a test, because there's questions from each unit on the test.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, after you take a test, go over the questions you missed,
Yeah.
because that is really helpful on the tests you take after that.
So you don't keep making the same mistakes.
Pass by the A deadline.
That's good advice.
Pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah. Good luck, guys. Chemistry's awesome if you make it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so here we have some final closing thoughts. Skipping a podcast is like skipping class. You gotta watch the podcast. You heard some students say that. You gotta take notes. Right? I can tell you that my most successful students last year took notes. They had notebooks full of notes. They used the pause and the rewind features liberally. Because what happens if you don't pause it? I keep talking and you miss the next thing that the person said, that the lecturer said, whether that's me or whether that's Mrs. Sherman. All right? Bottom line is use the pause button. Write down what you want to write down, then kick the video back up again, let it go. Chemistry builds on itself. We talked about this in class the first day. Chemistry builds. All of your tests are going to be cumulative. That's the concept of mastery learning. So you can't put it in your head, take a test, and then flush it. Doesn't work. You've got to retain it. All right? So, guys, podcasting can work great, but you have to do the work. And you have to be willing to go and watch the videos. And you have to be willing to ask questions when you're in class. That's what we're there for. Okay? We're there before and after school as well to help you if you need it then. Okay? Have a great day, and we'll see you in class. Take care. Bye.